Uh, I'm the artistic director of the HKW, Haus der Kulturen der Welt in Berlin, since about 15 years. Before, I worked also for the Goethe Institute. My education is in philosophy. And of course, being involved in cultural work during the last 30, 40 years, the whole issue of memory, cultural memory, played a major role. We did different projects at the house and at the Goethe Institute on these issues. If you look at the debates right now in Germany, there are, of course, two basic moments of memory which are of major importance. It's on the one side, the Holocaust memory, and on the other side, the colonial past of Germany. The colonial past, as far as the colonial past is concerned, the discussions about Germany's colonial involvement really started only in the last 20 years. Before that, the whole discussion about being involved in the colonial enterprise was just a minor discussion amongst experts. But in the last 20 years, this discussion about the colonial past really took center stage more and more. And there are, I see two reasons for that. On the one side, of course, we have more and more people coming in from Africa, the Arab world, and also from other parts of the world to Germany, parts of the world which had a colonial past. And so this theme is brought by these people into Germany and questioning what was the role of Germany in the whole colonial enterprise. And of course, there is one date, 1884, when there was the Conference of Africa organized by von Bismarck in Berlin, where the African continent got divided up, and Germany, of course, played also quite a major role in this division of Africa. And this is the one side, and the other side is that, as you may know, in the last years, the major cultural institution which was built up was the Humboldt Forum, and in the context of the Humboldt Forum, quite a number of colonial collections were put on center stage because they are going into the Humboldt Forum now, from Dahlem to the Humboldt Forum. So the question about the role and the function of these objects became a major discussion amongst scholars, but also about the role of this new institution, which is so important for Germany in the 21st century. I think there are different layers in which way one can commemorate, or we should commemorate these past events. For example, as far as the Holocaust is concerned, on the one side, you have memorials, for example, such as the memorial for the murdered Jews in Berlin. On the other side, the concentration camps, which are still there, they can be used as locations of memory, especially also for education of young people. School education, I think, is a very important point in this context. And there were, in the last 10, 15 years, there was a project on stumbling blocks in Berlin, but not only in Berlin, I think it's all over Europe even, where you have stumbling blocks in front of the houses from which Jews were deported and killed later on. So, for example, I live in Charlottenburg in Berlin, and there all the houses on my street have these stumbling blocks, including my our own house here. And I think this is a really good way to commemorate what happened and directly related to the space where you live now. So you have a direct experiential relationship to the past via these stumbling blocks. And as I said, I think what is also very important is that there are not only monuments or memorials, but that there is a real education and discussion in society in which way also the past affects really the situation now, because we have a rising anti-Semitism in Germany, we have a rising racism in Germany, and institutions, cultural institutions such as the HKW, but also other institutions, I think have the role and the responsibility to get involved in these discussions. And yeah. Yeah, I think that it changes quite a lot, the discussions. For example, the whole restitution debate we have now about African objects, for example, the Benin bronze, one could not have imagined, let's say, 20 years ago. And being involved in this discussion also, it changes the perspective on African societies, African culture, and the relationship between Germany or the European cultures and societies and the African ones. So I think, yeah, there is, and when you see, for example, also what President Macron is doing in France, giving back really objects from the African continent, and not only giving back the objects, I think what is also important is that one starts to negotiate on the same level with people from different cultures on what was the common past, to which way the colonial enterprise was defining, so to say, the relationships between European countries and African or non-Western countries, and what can be done in order to renegotiate these relationships. I think it's very important. I mean, what they try to do is to rewrite history and thereby also influence, of course, commemoration. Because parties such as the AfD, they want to re-nationalize Europe. And in the context of renationalization, they want to develop counter narratives to the commemoration narratives. And therefore, of course, you can say there is kind of memorial wars are going on, where right-wing parties are appropriating memory and memorization for their own political purposes. I think the role of cultural institutions such as, and I speak from the perspective of HKW, of course, HKW is not a museum. Of course, museums may be interested more in conservation and preserving of memory. I think what institutions such as HKW have to do is to some extent reanimate memory, not conserve it, making it active, making it part of the actual discussions. And doing that, I mean, since we are working with artists, doing that together with artists and intellectuals in concrete projects. I described already the Maria Eichhorn project. This is one project. Another very interesting project in this context with a project together with the artist Jimmy Durham, who just recently died, unfortunately. He was questioning in this project, so to say, the American narratives towards indigenous people. And at the house, der Kultur in der Welt, which was a present of the United States to the city of Berlin in the 50s, as a Congress hall, German Franklin about the role of freedom and justice as a value, and Jimmy Durham in his work, which showed about 10 years ago, was counter, so to say, exactly this this plague with this quote of Benjamin Franklin, quotes of Benjamin Franklin and other politicians related to indigenous people in the United States. So you could see how the universalism on the one side was aimed, and on the other side, in the actual attitude relationships to indigenous people, it was, so to say, right at all. I think the role of cultural institutions such as the HKW is exactly reflecting, rewriting also the memory, and in order to keep it alive, because I think each generation has to re-engage in the process of memorization, and not freeze it down to just a fossil, which one in rituals is just reanimating. Yeah, I think when you look at the rising anti-Semitism we have in German society, we are at the moment where we really have to reanimate the Holocaust memory. And what was, so to say, the end result of this kind of beginning of anti-Semitism in the 30s and 40s. I think, let's say, as you know, 20 years ago, it would have been very difficult to imagine that a party such as the AfD would become a member of the German parliament. But now they are there. And this has, of course, to do with quite a number of developments within German and European societies. There is, I think, from one perspective, I think it's a counter reaction to globalization processes, where people are unsettled, they are losing their orientation, and then nationalist narratives help them to become rooted again. But of course, these are the wrong answers to the problems which we are facing. On the other side, after unification, as you know, East Germany, the East German leadership, political leadership, understood itself as counter-fascist movement. So they looked at themselves and their whole society as a non-fascist society. So the whole reflection on the past, which has happened on the Western part, did not take place there. So there are different layers of issues which fuel this kind of new anti-Semitism. In this context, I think all players, institutional players in the cultural field, but also in the political field, have the responsibility to counter-react to this situation.